In this video, I'll be going over how to use the through curve command in NX. This is a very powerful one that can be used for surface modeling and making surfaces like this, which otherwise would be pretty complicated to make using solid modeling techniques. Since this is a very versatile and useful tool, I'll be going over a few ways to utilize it and a few of the tricky parts about it that you have to be aware of. But to get started, I'm going to actually delete all of this and start from scratch here, and we'll get right into it. So to make a curve or a surface like the one I just had, we're going to do a few things to get started. The first one is I'm going to make a separate plane away from our default datum coordinate system thing, uh, pretty arbitrarily set there. And then the next thing is I'm just going to make two sets of sketches, each one with a different curve in it. So right now I'm going off of the YX datum on the origin, and I'm just going to make a spline here. So typical through point spline, that looks good to me. We're going to leave it open as well. I'm not going to worry about defining any of the dimensions or constraining it here, but you should. And then the second sketch I'm going to make is going to be on this datum that I defined away from that coordinate system. And for this one, I'm going to, let's make another spline actually. And instead of, I'm just going to pretty arbitrarily make that spline. That looks fine to me. And we're mostly through it. The next step is going to be using the through curve command, which can be found within the surface tool or on the ribbon here. And if you go to through curve right there and click on it, today I'm only going to be showcasing the through curves tool. I don't really know much about the through curves mesh tool. I haven't really used it that much. But once we click on the through curves command, it will give this pretty complicated window, which will open up. Complicated for most compared to most other tools. But the first thing it'll ask us to do is select a couple of curves here. And if you do that, if you select both of these, it'll actually give you an error more likely than not, which is a little bit counterintuitive. So I'm actually going to deselect one of these curves. And the trick is you want to separate, you want to add multiple sections, which are basically multiple clicks, multiple different curves that you're selecting within this menu here, this little list menu. So to do that, you can either press this add new section button like that, and it'll show that you're selecting a new one right there, and then you can go ahead and select it, and it'll show you what that through curve will look like. But I think the more efficient way to do it is to, in fact, use the middle mouse button. So press down on the wheel of your mouse there, and it'll automatically open up that new click dialog, and you can really do it quickly. I only recently learned about that, and it pretty much changed my life, to be honest with you. So just to do that again, if you start from the menu, you can just quickly select both of them, and in this case it's going to freak out, which is one of the things we have to talk about. So if it does actually look like this, if it looks very messed up, almost like it's twisted around, the way you can untwist it is going up to this up here reverse direction. Click on that and it should get you a little bit closer. There are cases where it will still look a little bit messed up, which we'll go over later. But if you have something simple like this, like these two spline curves, it should work pretty well right off the bat. And it will generate, of course, a sheet body. And then we'll select OK there, and it looks a little bit weird in places, but we'll call it good for now. If you're ever wanting to improve it a little bit or change its shape, you can do that in, I think alignment is probably your best bet. There are a few buttons you can press, like preserve shape, which is a little bit hard to see, but it smooths it out a little bit. And then the big thing is the alignment tool. And we'll get more into this in the next example, but right now it's set to alignment by points, which if you see these white lines that span across the two splines we made, they're basically saying how these two splines are connected, how they're joined together to create that surface. And if I move the ends of these lines, which have points per the by points alignment, I can change how these two splines are connected to each other, essentially. If I wanted to, I can change how this surface is shaped by moving those points around and getting it to a place I want. So typically I'd want to put these points at the I guess the minimum of this almost parabolic curve. Very loosely speaking in math terms there, I want to put it at like the curvature of that, and that tends to help it improve its smoothness a bit more than not. And of course, this is something that you have to play around with a lot. It's a pretty tricky thing to get right. But that looks pretty good to me. It's a little bit rough, but we'll call that good. And then for the next example, instead we're going to be doing a closed body and showcase a lot of the issues that you might get by using the through curve command and how to fix those. So for that, I'm actually going to use a circle on the bottom here, and I'm going to reuse that datum we made before and do the same thing and make another sketch off of it. In this case, though, I'm going to use a polygon. I'm actually going to make this a little bit off axis compared to, or off the center to make it non-concentric to the circle below. Click OK there, and we get a pentagon and a circle, and our goal is to connect the two to create a closed surface that, has profiles of both. So I'm going to use the through curves command again here. I'm going to click on the circle and then click on the circle there, middle mouse click, and then click on the pentagon. And there's sort of the twisting feature that we saw earlier. In this case, it's a lot more obvious. So I'm going to click the reverse direction, and it's actually pretty nice here. I'm going to try to mess it up a bit more for us here. It might be tricky. Okay, you know what? It turned out pretty well. Sometimes that does happen, but I'll go over the alignment tools nonetheless and show how it can get messed up. Parameter is pretty much, I believe that's the default that it defaults to. And it just, I'm pretty sure the way that works is, it goes based on the section of each one of the curves and lines them up via that way. I think arc length works in a similar way. By points is the one where you actually have control, and this is actually a good way to demonstrate it. The by points, you can drag these points around and change how these surfaces are, or how the curves are connected. So if I wanted to add in a little bit of twist here to this surface, I can do so. The one thing about it is if you have 2 points close together, you can't move one point past the other one. They have to kind of stay in a specific order. So in this case, if I wanted to get this point more to the left, I have to move the point blocking it away before I can do so. And if you wanted to add more points, you can just click on either side of the curve here and you can generate them. If you want to get them away, I believe, let me see if I can on the fly figure out. There's probably a way to get rid of them, or you can right click it and click delete to get rid of those points if you wanted to as well. But again, if you wanted to add curvature, you can just drag these points around and create a bit of a funky shape there. Another helpful one, it won't really work in this case, but spline curves, you can specifically select what curves that you want to connect on either surface. Like again, it won't really apply here since we have a closed body and we have a circle which is kind of connected on either end. It's a little bit hard to demonstrate, but bipoints is pretty much the one you'll interact with the most if you need to go in there and fix things. You can also choose the body type that this will end up being. In this case, I'm going to select a sheet type, which will hollow it out and make it have no thickness. And we'll talk about continuity in a little bit, but leave it to G0 or position if you're just starting off with 2 curves and nothing else. But there you go. There's how you would connect 2 different profiles together. It's typically better than sweep to my experience. You can do this with solid modeling pretty easily as well, but through curves is another tool to use. And if you wanted to make this into a solid body after making it a sheet, you can simply use the fill surface, click on this pentagon profile, just click on all the lines that comprise it, which will lead it to fill in the pentagon with the surface, and click OK. Do that again. Probably should have just pressed applied there. And then once you have that, you can actually, once you fill in both of these tops and bottoms, which were previously open, you can use the sew tool to create a solid body by clicking on the top or whatever side really to be the target, and then using the remaining surfaces, defining the sides to be the tools. And once you click OK, if I quickly, because I'm getting a bit off track here, if I quickly create a clip section, you can see it is solid when before it was a hollow surface. Okay, anyway, that's a bit of a side tangent, so let's get rid of that here. Okay, and then the last demo, I'll actually keep that there. The last demo I'll do is, let's say I was building off of something that was pre-existing, and I want it to kind of flow a bit. I don't want it to be, I want the thing I'm building off of this pre-existing geometry to blend into it smoothly without using extrudes or solid modeling techniques. So in this case, let's say I'm drawing out an ellipse on this plane here. So I can go in here, I can select ellipse from our list of tools for sketching, and draw out the ellipse here. That's fine. Not going to bother with dimensioning as usual, and then we're left with just the ellipse here. And let's say I wanted this circular section to blend into that ellipse. I can do that pretty easily here with surfaces, and this is one of the advantages of through curves that I've found in the past, is its ability to really make things look quite organic and quite smooth, honestly. So I'm going to select all of the little curves that make up that circular section, and I'm going to middle mouse click and select that, and we're going to get this intersecting thing. The alert here, output is self-intersecting, is something you'll be fighting a lot when you use surfaces and through curves. And actually, in this case, hitting that reverse direction button doesn't really bias anything. We have to go in with the by points to move things around. So if you can kind of see what's going on here, this line, I can't really highlight it unfortunately, but this line connecting points from here, oh, there it is. That red line is not exactly the way we want it to be. We want it to take up a shorter distance. So I'm going to drag it around, and I'm going to take this other curve, or this other line, and drag it around as well until it gets to a shape that I want. And I just accidentally made another line there. like I said, this is very manual, unfortunately, but it does get pretty easy once you get used to it, and gives you a lot of control over the fine details of how you want your shape to be. So that could be what we're after, but let's continue with the idea of having it be a smooth transition. I'm actually going to use this continuity tool or section to achieve that. I'm going to press tangent, and let's see what happens here. I'm going to select all the faces of this first body, this solid body that we made. It doesn't have to be a solid body. It could also be a surface as well. But once I select all the faces for that, you can see that our shape, that the new surface we're trying to make, changed a bit. It's now building its curve that brings the circular profile to the elliptical profile. It's building in a little bit of a curve to it to make it tangent to our initial geometry. So it adds a lot of flow to it. It makes it a lot more organic versus the initial kind of disjointed straight geometry that we have here once I select it back to position. And in fact, if I wanted to go to G2 curvature, it would even add a little bit more, but it gets a little bit strange if I do that. Again, this is going to be a lot of up to the user, but I'll keep it at tangent. I might even choose to use these points a little bit more, and it completely messed up. Okay, I might choose to move these points around a little bit more as well to get it to be somewhere I want. Again, I'm going to try to move these points towards the, I don't know, the areas of sharpness of the ellipse. And you can add more of those lines to build it out a bit more as well. I'm going to keep it as, in this case, I'll make it a solid and just union them later. And of course you can, one last thing, you can do that continuity, that tangent continuity. If I had another body I was up here that I wanted it to be tangent to, I wanted this new curve to be, or new surface rather, to be tangent to up here on this side, I can do that as well using the last section. We define the first section, we can use the last section as well. I don't really know what those do, to be honest, so I'm not going to specify that. Oh, another thing, for preserve shape, you can see that when I click it, when I turn it on, you can see these lines get formed. That was actually something that showed up with this circular section where I had to select on all the multiple parts of the perimeter of that circle. That'll add in these lines here, which exist after you create that through curve, and you select OK on the tool. Those curves there, those ridges almost, will exist there, which are helpful in some cases. Some cases they're not necessary, and you're better off without them. So that's without the preserve shape on. I think that's mostly it. There will always be little things that pop up with this stuff, but in this case, I think those are the broad strokes that'll help get you started. Oh, another thing, I could talk about through curves for a long time. You can do multiple sections, so let me get rid of that real quick, and I'll do one last. Wanted to keep this a little bit shorter, but that's okay. Through curves is always worth it. I'll do one last example with multiple sections that we'll have to through curve through. Okay, so in this case, in this scenario, we have three sections. We have our original circular profile here from this solid body. We have the elliptical one, and we have this new smaller circular section. So if I go to through curve, I can select, and again, the reason why I have to select multiple times here to go around the perimeter of that circle is because I had preserved shape on for that original one. Middle mouse click, click on the ellipse, middle mouse click again, click on there. It's not going to auto show up. And actually this is pretty useful in my mind, because since I haven't selected the tangent faces down here like I did the last example, it won't auto show preview, so I can actually see the lines here, which will making this thing look pretty or look accurate a little bit easier. So I'll go through and quickly move these lines and points around to a place where I believe will look good. And actually in this case, since there are only three of these points on each of the sections I'm defining, I would even add more, honestly. Add a little bit more resolution to it, make it a bit easier to get the shape I'm after. But, you know, this is an example here. So that should give us a general good shape. It's not going to be twisted up like earlier. And now I'm going to actually go and select the tangent faces here to make it flow from this original solid body. So I'll go through and select all of them here. And once I do, that warning in the corner goes away, and we're left with our rather interesting shape that goes through multiple profiles. There you go. And to keep it consistent, I'll even turn on the preserve shape. Oh, another cool tool that you can use if you wanted to keep these lines, like right now I'm going to have these kind of continuous lines from one geometry to the next that I'm building, and then these shorter lines that are only with this new part of the geometry here. If I wanted to, I can actually snap this point. Oh, it's not going to snap, is it? Sometimes it snaps. Oh, there. Oh, please. There it is. Okay, that's fine. You can snap that point into the previous point defined by that body, and it'll kind of consolidate it a bit, make it look a little bit cleaner. Yeah, anyway, I can play around with that for a while, but that's how you use ThruCurve. It's pretty useful, especially for coolant channels. I've used it before, just general organic shapes that might be a little bit too difficult to model with conventional solid modeling. All right, let me know if you have any questions on that. Have a good one.